Let's talk about Loro,
Yes!
because this is a good one to come to from Jude Law, because it's a new film by Paolo Sorrentino, and Paolo Sorrentino is, of course, working with Jude Law currently on the second series
The New
of
Pope?
The Young Pope, which is called The New Pope, exactly. And pictures emerged a week ago of him on set on the Lido in Venice, I think, in a pair of...
Quite Daniel Craig-esque Bond with a bit of the blue, kind of tanga pants gone over to white with Jude.
Tanga pants, is that what they're called?
Well, I mean, I don't know if they're called swimming trunks.
Okay.
But Daniel had the blue ones and Jude was in the white with ripped and tanned and oiled.
Pope pants.
Pope pants.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going online. Pope pants.
So this is, I mean, goodness, if you know Paolo Sorrentino's stuff, the Young Pope, obviously the New Pope now, and The Great Beauty was his big breakout success,
loved
which was that incredible Oscar-winning...
Youth as well.
Youth as well, he did with Michael Caine and Rachel Weisz.
Fantastic.
This was originally two films. It was a two-part kind of diptych portrait of Silvio Berlusconi, the former Italian Prime Minister and media tycoon, and it covered these two films, his spell in opposition from 2006 to 2008, and then riding over into his big comeback in 2009. Now, I think very sensibly, the distributors have realised that outside of Italy, there's probably not an enormous appetite for a double bill of films about the life of Silvio Berlusconi. So
I'd go.
what they've done, well, you would maybe go after having seen this version, but what they've done with Sorrentino's complete cooperation is they've cut it down into one 2.5 hour block, which takes you through the entire story, but obviously has had to lose, I think, almost an hour's worth of material from the original project. It's prefaced by an incredibly long disclaimer, which says that it's a work of independent and free imagination, and reference to real people or events is wholly artistic.
I've got to say the subtitles come up so quick and change so quickly
it's
that you almost have to
as if they
freeze
want
frame
you
it.
to know what it is.
Well, wait. Yeah.
But basically, it's Sorrentino speculating about how things might have gone.
Yeah.
So he returns to his regular leading man here, Tony Servillo, who was Jep Gambardella in The Great Beauty, this kind of silver-haired sybarite who was swanning around the Italian, basically the contemporary Italian Dolce Vita, but also grappling with issues of mortality. And this great thing that The Great Beauty did was it had this contrast between the eternal, I mean, literally it's Rome, the eternal city. So you've got the Colosseum, you've got this incredible statuary all around. And then also the ephemeral, this idea of parties being there one night and then being evaporated the next, and human experience is fleeting and blah. So he's returning to that kind of theme with Tony Servillo as Berlusconi, but obviously Berlusconi is a very different character from Jep. Certainly in this version of the film, and the connections to reality, as we said, as wholly artistic. But he is corrupt and he's sleazy, and he is basically plotting his comeback from this Sardinian villa stroke stronghold on the coast. And the film is about how he manages to get from being this sidelined fallen king to claw his way back up to glory. Actually, the first half hour of the film doesn't really concern itself with Berlusconi at all. It's a long time before we see him. Instead, it's this character called Sergio Mora, who's played by an Italian actor called Riccardo Scamarcio, who describes himself as a talent scout, which is a very polite way of saying he's assembled this harem of women. To grease the wheels of local politics, shall we say. They're there for purposes of bribery and for blackmail, and so he will make things happen on other people's behalf by manipulating local politicians. And when he is in an intimate encounter with one of these women, he notices that she has a tattoo of Silvio Berlusconi's face on part of her body. And this hits him as this quasi-religious breakthrough that he wants to he decides that this is the guy. He needs to become part of this guy's inner circle. He needs to ingratiate himself into Berlusconi's court. So he plans to bring all of these women with him down to this villa in Sardinia and throw this enormous party for the sole purpose of catching Berlusconi's eye, because he knows that Berlusconi has a weakness for young women. And this is actually something that's borne out, certainly in history, is that part of the scandal around, which is touched on in the film's second half, is that there was this corruption scandal where Berlusconi was securing jobs for favoured showgirls on television, because he runs a lot of Italian television as well. So there's this idea that by creating this completely fake, almost like a snow globe of sleaze and depravity, purely for Berlusconi's benefit, that he can ingratiate himself into his inner circle. We can talk more about this perhaps after the news, because there's a lot more to be said about Loro. But it's certainly, I think the main thing is this is absolutely Route One Sorrentino. If you've seen The Great Beauty and you've enjoyed it, then this is kind of, it's working along very similar lines.
It's such a glorious vision and kind of sort of just gregarious but gorgeous in every sense. We'll talk a bit more about that as well. Let's get back to Loro then, and what are your thoughts on the film, Robbie?
Yes, so this idea that Berlusconi's plotting his comeback, and the title Loro has this double meaning. It means them in Italian, and it's referring, I think, to the courtiers around Berlusconi, this idea that he's living in a sealed world where ultimately everything is put on and performed for his benefit, like these parties being staged by Sergio at the nearby villa, and like the various people that come to pay tribute to him in person and are desperately trying to help him back to power by working out which senators he can flip and different schemes that he can indulge in. But Loro also sounds like gold in Italian as well. So again, this idea that it's a gilded existence. I think what comes across as you see his day-to-day life in seclusion is this idea that for him, the sleaze and the corruption aren't a means to enacting a certain political agenda. They are the political agenda. And this is what he's interested in. As a result, the film itself is incredibly gratuitous when it comes to, I think, nudity, exploitation of overwhelmingly the female body, but bodies in general, but particularly the female body. Also in terms of this pounding, relentless Europop that fills most of the soundtrack. In fact, there's an incredible moment where it moves straight from the Ketchup song, which I don't know if you remember from
I do,
from Summer's
sadly.
Past. Yep. Straight to Voi chi sapete, which is exactly this sort of high-low contrast that Sorrentino specialises in. I think
And silence as well.
And silence at very creepy particular moments as well. So and Luca Bagazzi's photography as well, he's Sorrentino's regular cinematographer, has this kind of diamond hard, high gloss, varnishy finish to absolutely everything. And it's meant to feel gratuitous, and it's meant to feel phony and hollow, and it's meant to be seductive, all of these things at once. For me, the issue with it is that the final film feels so lopsided and fragmented. Different plots come and go. The Sergio thing doesn't turn out to be quite as important as it is. The corruption thing with the tapped phones comes up towards the end, but isn't resolved in a massively satisfactory manner. I wonder how much of that is down to the fact that an enormous amount of material has been compressed into one thing, or if that was Sorrentino's purpose, which is why I said earlier, I would, having seen the shorter cut, which is by no means short, I would now love to go and see the longer cut. But I think it's, it has this incredible performance from Tony Servillo at the heart. It's really interesting character study that's also this sensory overload. I mean, there are sequences here that make Michael Bay look like early Bresson. I mean, it is just total, overwhelming, disgusting and seductive at the same time.
Great use of a rat as well, I have to mention.
Oh yes, I mean the symbolism in this is not subtle.
Yeah, not at all. It's great. I think he's a very exciting filmmaker, and I love the fact that he flips between TV and film as well in what he does.
Yes, I mean for Sorrentino it's all one and the same thing.
Yeah.
The Pope series are basically shot as 10-hour films.
Yeah, gorgeous.